Okay, so it's going to take me forever to actually work out how to use the camera, and I just want to get this video done for you. So I will make it again properly, but I have been neglecting Sally the sourdough. Oops, I got a pan boiling over. I've been neglecting Sally the sourdough literally since you left. The last time I fed her was when you were here. Excuse me a second, I just have to pour out a crazy foamy pan. In case you're wondering what's in there, by the way, it's only baking soda and water. I'm trying to clean off something I've stuck to the bottom. But yeah, making another mess to clean up. This is the other reason why I'm recording it on my phone. So anyways, let's see how Sally's doing. Yeah, look at that, that looks gross. So you can see we've got some layers, we've got some colours. It's disgusting. Now, the most important thing, really the only important thing, is don't try and stir it. Because what you'll see is, I really should have planned this better. By the way, I promise my floor's not normally this dirty. I've got a problem with one of my drainage pipes, and it keeps throwing dirty water on the floor. But yeah, you'll see there's different consistencies. You can see there's like this thick consistency at the bottom. That's the yeast. So what you want to do is you want to take the gross bowl. You see all that growth on the back there? You're going to take the gross container and pour out as much as you can pour. And you'll see you've got a combination of gross and less gross stuff. And it smells horrific, by the way. And then you want to grab your spoon. And what you want to do is you want to try and get rid of enough of the gross pink stuff, because the pinkish red stuff is mould, basically. It's I forget what it's called, but basically it's a specific type of mould. It can't really kill you or anything, like it's not super dangerous, but it's not good either. And obviously the green mould is mould. Now, you don't need a serious amount of, let me restart. You want to try and get rid of enough of the mouldy bits that you can scoop out some of the sourdough from underneath. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's most important that you don't get any of the green mould in there. You see, the reason why the mould doesn't grow in a healthy sourdough is because yeast is actually really good at killing off other bacteria. It's a very aggressive bacteria. So the only reason why the nasty moulds have been able to grow is because I haven't been feeding the yeast. Technically, I could just scoop all of this into a fresh container and carry on feeding it, and the yeast would probably kill it all off, but it also might not, and I might accidentally poison myself. So I'm going to put the phone down for a second just so that I can actually get this done. Wait one moment. And ultimately, what you will find is that right down at the bottom, you will have a layer of very thick, rather gross smelling, semi-solid sourdough yeast. And that is basically just pure yeast. It's completely unusable at the moment, but it is not dead. A lot of people have this idea that if you don't feed your sourdough often enough, it dies, which isn't really the case. It doesn't die, it just goes inactive. So I've wiped out most of the green mould from around the sides, as you can see, just so that the loose powder stops falling in. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get a clean jar. Forgive the state of the cupboards, they need a deep clean. My entire kitchen needs some serious work. Then just pop off the lid. Pop, there we go. And Again, I'm just going to put this down for a second. Let's see if I can prop it in such a way that you can actually see something as I'm working. I highly doubt it. So let's try. See, this is why my actual camera has a tripod. Right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a clean spoon. She says in theory that relies on me actually having a clean spoon to get. And again, you want to make sure that you are discarding as much of the contaminated stuff as possible. So any last minute chucking out of mould should be done now. Also, rinsing the spoon with hot water between each scoop is a good idea. Okay. And I don't know if you can hear that, but I've got very thick stuff now that I'm collecting up. Can you see that? You see that texture? Can you hear that noise? If you've ever bought fresh yeast, it comes in kind of like a semi-solid, kind of goopy, sticky, pale paste or a pale powder. Basically, this is halfway between what's commercially sold as fresh yeast and my sourdough. And basically what I'm doing is I'm scooping out as much of the actual sourdough as I can salvage without getting any of the gross stuff. It is more important by far that you do not get gross stuff than it is to preserve the sourdough. Because at the end of the day, the absolute worst that can happen if you can't preserve any sourdough is you end up having to make a whole new sourdough. The worst that can happen if you don't properly decontaminate it is, you know, you die or something. I mean, I don't think you would actually die unless something super nasty contaminated it, but you know, it's never a good idea to eat unidentifiable mould. So there's the amount that I've gotten out of it, and that is just literally nothing but pure sourdough. But now I've got to feed it. So there's a couple of ways that I can do this, and forgive me, but you're just going to have to walk with me for a minute. Just water and flour, the same as you've been doing this whole time. That works. This does still have yeast in it. It is not dead. So you can just carry on feeding it and it'll, you know, come back to life, wake up, whatever. It's dormant at the moment. It's like dried yeast. It's just waiting to be fed. So, you know, feed it, it'll come back, it will perk up, it'll be fine. And you can do that just with... Oh, sorry, I just realised I'm filming my boobs. Sorry about that. I'm aiming for my shoulder. So, yeah, I mean, you can just feed it and that's it. It'll be fine. Or you can put... What's this? I'm looking for sugar or something comparable to sugar. Because yeast loves, and I do mean loves, sugar. That's basically what it's eating in the flour. So, I am going to put together a little cocktail for it. Because it also likes warm water, as opposed to just cold water. But I've been running my hot water tap, so it's now scalding hot. And whilst periods of cold or periods of not feeding it will not kill it, scalding hot water most definitely will. You see all the gross stuff in my sink? That's all from the sourdough. And my God, the smell is ridiculous. There we go. I'm just sticking my nice clean finger, I promise, into the water just to see what temperature it's at. And then I'm going to feed it quite liberally today because I haven't fed it in a while. So I'm going to put in that much warm water. And then I'm going to grab another clean spoon. I could have used my last clean spoon, but I didn't think to keep it. And then grab a few scoops of flour. I am normally a bit more competent than this, but I'm trying to juggle my phone and the flour and making sure that I've got the shot in the right place and all of that jazz. And this time I'm going to put in a little bit more liquid than flour. Normally you want to make sure it sort of stays at a nice thick paste, but it's already at a really thick paste, so basically I'm diluting it a little bit. And I'm just going to use my tiny whisk. Not quite a tiny whisk, not binging with Babish tiny, but fairly small. So I'm going to use my smallish whisk to mix it all up, which as you can see I'm trying to do one-handed. Give me a second, I'm just going to put you down for a moment. Whisk, 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 whisk. Okay, I need a little bit more water in there. Put a little bit more water in, whisk it up a little bit more. That's it. And you want to make sure that you mix it really thoroughly, because you want to try and make sure that you're getting all of that stuff from the last batch properly incorporated into the new feed. So like really get down at the bottom, really mix it up. One trick that works for a lot of people is to put in twice as much water as you need, or more accurately put in half as much flour as you need. And then to make it like really thin and liquidy, and then shake it up. So there we go, I've got my mix and you can already see bubbles in it. At least you can if it comes into focus. I don't know how well that's focusing, but you see those tiny little specks? Those are all bubbles. You see it better at the top. See all those bubbles? That ain't dead. It's not dead, it was just dormant. Now that I put some food in there, it's perked right back up. And now I'm going to put in a little bit of sugar. Not much, just a teaspoon. Because again, yeast freaking loves sugar. Also, you may notice I'm putting it in a glass jar this time. So I will not be putting the lid on firmly, because if I do put the lid on firmly, especially after feeding it sugar, it's going to explode. Look, can you see, again, immediately the difference that it's made? And you can see that's not just where I've stirred in the bubbles, because if you watch closely, you can actually see new bubbles forming and popping every few seconds. Like that's creating bubbles as we speak right now. Well, that's not just where I've stirred in the bubbles. That is forming bubbles. That is bubbling. So, yeah. But yeah, so just loosely put the lid on and then carry on feeding it as normal. Keep an eye on it for the next 12 to 24 hours, especially if you fed it something other than its normal mix. Also, fruit juice, fruit purees, things like that are also good things to feed it. Basically anything high sugar, except for dairy products. Don't put milk in there, because I made that mistake once of seeing in a recipe that milk is often used to, you know, provide the extra sugar for yeast in certain bread recipes. And it didn't occur to me that bread recipes are typically then cooked and not fermented. I'm not very smart. But yes, learn from my mistakes. Also, can you see all those lovely bubbles? Like, you see what I mean about how quickly it perks back up, and this literally hasn't been fed since you left. You saw the state of it. You can see the state of my sink. That's all the crap that came out of it. It is not dead. It was not dead. I did not hurt it. I just forgot to feed it and it went to sleep for a bit. And now it's awake again. I'll show you some pictures tomorrow if you'd like, just so you can see what I mean. Bye.